So let's broaden our mind. And think of the nighttime sky with all the stars out there. There's probably many solar systems involved with those stars. And planets in the solar systems, and so many different kinds of life forms. Ones that we can't see, whose bodies depend on different materials than ours does. But so many sentient beings and all their different experiences. All wanting happiness, none wanting suffering. But not knowing anything about karma, and cause and effect on an ethical plane. Dragged by their self-centered thought, their self-grasping, create so much negative karma to be born and reborn. And yet we have this miraculous, precious human life. And we've met extraordinary teachers like His Holiness, Geshe Zopa, and many others. So let's really use our opportunity with joy and practice as best as we can with the compassionate aspiration to attain Buddhahood, so we could be so much more effective in being of benefit to sentient beings. So we benefit others according to our capability. So we shouldn't put ourselves down for only being able to benefit others in a limited way, but instead think, I do what I'm able to do now, and my aspiration is to increase this. Okay? And to give ourselves credit for what we do that is of benefit. Yeah. Right before I came here, Maitri was chasing a little moth in my room. And I had to jump in and save the moth, who had a really close call, and put the moth outside. So it was one tiny thing, but, we do things, one tiny thing after another, and it builds up a momentum and a predisposition to go in that way. So one day being able to do something much bigger, and also thinking that how many times in the past, before I met the Dharma, I wouldn't have cared beans about that moth. Yeah, so just even caring, and rushing in there to help, that was an improvement from years ago. So, we give ourselves credit, and then we continue, in that way, instead of always discounting ourselves and saying, Oh, I don't do very much. Okay. But again, giving ourselves credit without getting puffed up. Like, I am the grand liberator of moths. It's like, well, congratulations, kiddo. You know, you need a title, you got one. Yeah. Okay. One little announcement. Tomorrow, you'll have offering service from 8:30 until 10:45. At 10:45, we'll meet in the Kuan Yin room, and then you'll get some special instructions. Okay? See you at 10:45. Okay, so we were on the Upajaya's remaining instructions, weren't we? Page 29. Yeah, we had just finished. Do not engage in harmful deeds or break precepts so that you disgrace the Sangha, ruin the Buddha Dharma, and plant a great number of seeds for miserable future births and deaths. So in that sentence, you know, it really reminds me that harming ourselves and harming others are not two different things that happen at different times. One action basically does both. Okay? So if we break our precepts, engage in harmful deeds, yeah, we disgrace the Sangha, we harm the Sangha. Okay, we ruin the Buddha Dharma, we make lay people lose faith in the Dharma, so that's harming others. And we plant all those seeds for miserable rebirths in our own mind stream at the same time. Okay? So similarly, you know, when we're able to create virtue, our virtue creates the cause for us to have good rebirths, and it also benefits whoever is the object of our virtuous activities. Okay? So we're so often used to seeing things in terms of us and them. So if it harms me, it probably benefits them. Yeah, and if it helps me, well, then I have to harm somebody else. But it's not like that when you really think deeply about it, you know. The harm and the benefit occur to both self and others. Okay. If you keep the precepts and follow this advice, you will close the door to the three unfortunate realms and open the gate to nirvana. So isn't that what we want to do? Who wants to be born in the three unfortunate rebirths again? Yeah, I don't think any of us. So let's close that door by keeping good ethical conduct and not creating the causes for a lower rebirth. And then also by remembering that ethical conduct, especially keeping precepts, is the cause for a good human rebirth. Okay. And then also, like we've talked before, ethical conduct is a prelude to concentration and a prelude to wisdom. Remember these words constantly in order to spur yourself on, lest you have regrets later on and die in misery. Okay, so that's quite important, you know. I don't think any of us really want to die in misery or die with regrets. And, you know, dying in misery could be, you know, we've committed a lot of negative actions. And then at the time of death, there's the karmic appearances of the negative action that are a result of the negative actions we've done during our life. And those can be very frightening. And then there's a lot of struggle and unhappiness at this life, you know, at the end of this life. Or also, if we haven't practiced ethical conduct and we're still very attached to things in this life, then dying is excruciating because we have to leave our body, which, you know, we've identified and clung to for so long. we have to leave our whole ego identity that we've constructed with such care. Yeah, so our whole reputation, all the praise, none of that comes with. Yeah, all the wonderful sense experiences, all we have is, we don't even have photo albums. What do we have? Those little picture things that turn automatically. Yeah, my dad had one, and you upload it with pictures, and then every few seconds it changes a picture, and there I am in Malta, there I am in Afghanistan, there I am here, there I am, there, me. You have a record of your whole life in pictures on this revolving, what are they called? What? Not a screensaver, it's a whole different thing that you buy. It's a whole different thing. And you upload it, and it just shows with whatever pictures going round and around. No, it's like it's like an iPad, the size of an iPad, and it just flips through whatever you load it with. Okay, so there's your whole life, yeah, and all that happiness you have is only some digital screen now, yeah, but all the karma we created, and having so much attachment to those things, and then having to separate from them. And who's going to get my digital photo album? That's what I'll call it. My digital photo album, who's going to get it? I hope they don't throw it away. It's my whole life, and all my certificates and my degrees and my all these things that we've collected to show that we lived, that we treasure, but somebody else is going to have to go through it. And are they going to treasure all this junk as much as we treasured it? No, they're going to go and keep tossing, okay? And when they get to the CDs and the 401ks, then they'll fight about who gets that money. But all, the other stuff, it's like, have you ever had a garage sale and you price everything? And nobody wants to buy it because the prices you put on are indicative of their sentimental value to you. But to other people, they have no sentimental value. So this little ceramic, pencil holder that you got when you were in Cancun, in 1978 on your honeymoon, that has so much value for you, whoever has to go through your stuff is going to toss it. And even if they put it out there in the sale, it's not going to be worth the $2,000 you think it is. It may be 25 cents somebody will get it for. Okay? So, just think of, it's a good thing. Think if somebody had to go through your room tomorrow and through all your files and all your clothes and all your bookshelves and all your drawers. Yeah, what do you think about that? And they'll see all the stuff that you saved. Yeah. Yeah. Do you want other people to see all that stuff that you saved? Yeah. Do you want them to have to go through and sort through it? And yet we can't let it go because, it indicates my life. Yeah, it's so interesting. Now, and we'll save letters. And how often do we go and reread old letters. But we can't throw them out. So anyway, just, the amount of attachment we have during our life is going to be there at death time, and what can make death very, very difficult. Now, when you have to give up everything. And then if you haven't written a will, then you're going, my God, who's going to get this? Maybe I want so-and-so to get it. Or you wrote your will and then you changed your mind. Yeah, my old teddy bear, since I was 3 years old, I don't want this person to have it. I want that person to have it. And the lady I knew in Dharamsala, whose father fled Tibet in 59, and she was just a child at that time. But when he was dying, he had taken some gold out of Tibet and buried it somewhere along the way. And on his deathbed was trying to tell her where to find the gold. Yeah. And so can you imagine, you're dying, wondering how who's going to find your stuff, how they're going to find it, what they're going to think about it. Have you ever gone through somebody's stuff after they've died? Yeah. It's an interesting experience, isn't it, what you find? Yeah, I had some friends and a lady down their street who seemed to have no relatives designated them as their executors. And they were telling me that she saved so many receipts from things that she had bought. Receipts, instruction books, the little things, how to use your 1956 toaster. Yeah, of course, maybe you could sell that now for a lot of money. It's an antique. But, what we can't throw out is amazing. Okay, so you will close the door to the 3 unfortunate realms and open the gate to nirvana. Remember these words constantly in order to spur yourself on, lest you have regrets later on and die in misery. And then the Upadhyaya says, will you follow these teachings and act accordingly? And the person says, yes, I will do as directed. Okay, so that's the actual end of the Shramaneri ceremony, at which time then we do the homage to the Buddha, and we go on, at least here, we go on to the Shikshamana. Which I think it's helpful to listen to the advice that the Shikshamana receives as well. It's very similar, but it never hurts to hear it again. So this is after receiving the 6th Shikshamana. The Upadhyaya says, the Sangha has given you the 2 years of training in the precepts. Okay, let's skip that part. You have received the precepts complete in all aspects from an Upadhyaya who is complete in all aspects, an Acharya who is complete in all aspects, as well as a Bhikshuni Sangha that is complete in all aspects. So when you receive the ordination, it's important to think of the people who have given the ordination and supported us in taking it, and really see that these are people who have filled certain requirements. You can't be an Upadhyaya just by volunteering yourself. You can't be an acharya by volunteering yourself. So you have to be ordained a certain number of years. The Sangha has to approve you as the upajjhaya or the acharya. Okay, so as a candidate, when you see this, then you can rejoice that everything about your ordination was done conforming to the way that it is set out in the Vinaya, that it wasn't just some made-up ceremony on the fly because somebody thought it would be good to give ordination. And like I said, I've gotten phone calls from people who have told me about quote, quote, ordinations they've received and say, am I really, a monk or a nun? And then I ask them questions, and sometimes it's really very surprising, the conditions that happened and the ordinations that have been made up and so on. Okay? So if you follow something, in a reliable tradition, then the ceremony is conducted properly. And there's all sorts of elements. You have to set a sima, a territory within which it occurs, then the qualities of the people who give it, the qualities of the Sangha, the qualities of the candidate. And then you have to make sure that the Sangha karman, in the ceremonies where there's a Sangha karman, is done properly. Yeah, because the Sangha karman itself is the key thing that's when the ordination is happening. Okay, so it has to be done properly. And so you'll find in the different Vinaya traditions, the Sangha karman for the ordination is almost exactly the same, okay, because it's the same in all the Vinayas. And then all the traditions add other prayers and other things to the ceremony. But the actual Sangha action in the traditions is the same. Okay. So this is the same for posada, too. Like in the Tibetan tradition, when they do posada, they recite the Heart Sutra, they recite another sutra on pure morality, they make 4 torma offerings. All of that is stuff that is added by the Tibetan tradition. That stuff isn't in the Vinaya. In the Dharma Guptaka, then, we add the confession prayer that we chant slowly 3 times. And that's about it. Everything else is really reading the sutra. Yeah, there's some verses at the beginning that we say that aren't part of the Vinaya, but are gathering the assembly and so on. And the dedication, of course, in all the traditions is added by that tradition. But the Sangha karman itself is pretty much the same across the board. Okay. You also live in a good country and have a good place to practice. Even noble wheel-turning monarchs are not endowed with such fortune, yet you now possess all of these. So a wheel-turning monarch, that's somebody who has governance over 4 continents. Isn't that what you want? Yeah, you live in a nice palace, you have a lot of power, you have the 7 royal possessions. Yeah, that's seen as, tip-top samsara. And yet, that is nothing compared to the incredible opportunity that Sangha members have. Yeah, because you're born wheel-turning king or whatever, you're born the prince of, I don't know, Beverly Hills, then, it ends, doesn't it? It ends. You have it, and then it ends. And you can't take any of it with you, but we do take with all the karma we create. And when you're in positions of incredible power or wealth, it's very easy to create negative karma. Respect the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Make offerings to your Upadhyaya and Acharya, and respect senior, equal, and junior fellow practitioners. Okay? So respect not only seniors, but also equal practitioners who were ordained about the same time as you, and juniors. Okay, so it doesn't say be arrogant because you're ordained longer than other people, and be jealous because they were ordained longer than you. It doesn't say that. Okay, it says respect everybody. Work hard to cultivate the three higher trainings of ethical conduct, concentration, and wisdom. Okay, practice the three doors of liberation: emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. Okay, so that's three ways to look at emptiness. So emptiness is really looking at the nature of phenomena now. Signlessness is looking at emptiness through the eyes of the causes, what causes different phenomena, and wishlessness through the eyes of seeing the effects of different phenomena. And diligently cultivate three virtues of body, speech, and mind. Meditate, recite sutras, and encourage others to do meritorious acts. Yeah, so they encourage others to do meritorious acts. That's important. Yeah, people always come to me after maybe not always, but often come after a relative has died. What can I do to help that person have a good rebirth? Yeah, and and if I say, oh, throw a big puja, oh yes, I'll do that, and or recite so many blah blah, yes, I'll do that. But the real way to benefit the people that we care about is to not wait until they die, yeah, but to encourage them in virtue while they're alive, because that way they create the good karma. Okay, when we do prayers and pujas, it influences. How much it influences, I don't know. But I do know that direct influence with somebody when they're alive is going to be more. Yeah. So to encourage our family and friends to be generous, to encourage them in good ethical conduct, to encourage them, to try and live peacefully with others, to not incite hatred or antagonism in their minds when we're with them, to not gossip about other people so that our friends and relatives will be on our side against somebody else. Okay, so, to really think about karma and how we can influence the people around us in a good way. Yeah, because if they do that, then when they die, you don't have to worry about how they're going to be reborn, because you know that they've created a lot of virtue while they were alive. Yeah. Whereas if we kind of led our friends and relatives in doing non-virtuous actions, then when they die, we may say a lot of things and make offerings on their behalf, but they still have those karmic seeds on their mind stream, and those karmic seeds are going to ripen at some time or another. Okay. By practicing these trainings, you will open the door to nirvana and attain the results of stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, and arhat. So those are the four levels of Shravaka and solitary realizer, Aryas. Okay, a stream enterer, from the Pali viewpoint, yeah, it's somebody who has realized emptiness. Well, according to our tradition, has realized emptiness directly. Okay, and they have eliminated certain fetters. Yeah, in the Pali tradition, they talk about 10 fetters that have to be eliminated before we attain arhatship. In our tradition, we talk about the the 6 root delusion, 20 secondary. We also talk about the fetters. There's all these categories of different kind of defilements. So a stream enter has eliminated an initial portion of them. I won't go into the details because the way our system and the Pali system talks about them is slightly different. A once returner is somebody who will return one more time to the desire realm before attaining arhatship. A non-returner has eliminated the desire realm afflictions and so will not return to take rebirth in the desire realm before attaining the Shravaka arhatship. This person usually is born in the form realms. There's 5 levels at the top of the form realm where non-returners are usually born. Okay, so they're usually born there and then attain arhatship from there. And then the arhats who have eliminated all the afflictive obscurations. Okay, of course, being on the Bodhisattva path, we talk about the stages a little bit differently. Okay, as lotus flowers grow day and night in water, so too will you grow in the Buddha Dharma. Isn't that nice to have somebody say about you and say to you? Yeah, you're just this, you just got done with the ceremony trying to keep your shemdap on without it falling off, and feeling like, wow, what's just happened? And then somebody says to you, as lotus flowers grow day and night in the water, so too will you grow in the Buddha Dharma. Yeah, that's so reassuring, isn't it? In due course, you will be able to receive the bhikshu or bhikshuni ethical restraints. Yeah, so when you're ready, then you can take the full ordination. So after that, we do the homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, and then we do the verse of rejoicing. The verse of rejoicing is how wonderful. When one encounters the Buddha, there is no one who is not happy. In the past, we have created merit and generated the wish to meet the Buddha Dharma, and now we have obtained great Dharma benefit. So this is at the end of the ordination. Everybody is so happy. When you welcome a new member into the Sangha community is happy, the new member is happy. When we've done it here and there's been lay people, they don't come to the actual ceremony, but they come at the beginning when we offer incense. They come now at the dedication. At the end, they're all happy. So everybody's really happy at an ordination. Yeah. And so when one encounters the Buddha, there is no one who isn't happy, because you think of, this crazy world, and then here we are, and we've met the Buddha Dharma, okay? And then to say in the past we've created merit and generated the wish to meet the Buddha Dharma. So our fortune didn't happen by accident. Yeah, whoever we were over many previous lifetimes, we created a lot of virtue, and so it's coming to fruit right now, and now we've obtained great Dharma benefit, and having the opportunity, and we have just made good use of that great Dharma benefit by either being ordained, witnessing an ordination, giving the ordination, being part of the lay people who offer the meal afterwards. Everybody has obtained great Dharma benefit from it. Okay, so let's chant that verse of rejoicing.
How wonderful when one encounters the Buddha. There is no one who is not happy. In the past we have created, merited and generated the wish to meet the Buddha Dharma, and now we have obtained great Dharma benefit. How wonderful when one encounters the Buddha. There is no one who is not happy. In the past we have created, merit and generated the wish to meet the Buddha Dharma, and now we have obtained great Dharma benefit.
And I'm thinking maybe we should do homage to Shakyamuni Buddha. I don't know that everybody has heard that one before. It's the same words that we do on Tuesday and Saturday, but then we do it slowly. This is a different melody. So let's just do this a few times so that you can hear what it sounds like.
Namo Pinchu Mani Pho. 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 Namo Mani Pho.
When you go to Taiwan to take the full ordination, you chant this a lot. And those of you who have been, when you hear that melody, does your mind go right back to your ordination? You know, it does for me. I go right back, and just the whole beauty of that experience and that program. Yeah. Okay. Then there's the dedication verse. Okay. So the chant leader, there's a few dedication verse. Okay. Chant leader says, through the merit generated from head shaving, conferring the Shramaneri or Shramanera precepts, and for those who take the 2 years of training in the Shiksha Mana, then we respectfully request Brahma, Chakra, the 4 guardian kings, the 8 groups of Dharma protectors with Devas and Nagas at their heads, the protectors Sangharama, as well as guardians who protect the land, to use your majesty and divine power to protect the country and the Dharma. Okay? So, saying the things that we rejoice at having done, the head shaving, conferring the precepts, okay? And then we request worldly gods. Brahma Chakra is Indra, okay, the king of the gods. The 4 guardian kings, so they're in one of the desire realms. They're the 4 guardian kings that we see on the outside of temples all the time. Okay, one of them's holding a mongoose, And yeah, so they're outside a lot of the temples, both in the Tibetan community and the Chinese community. And then 8 groups of Dharma protectors, yeah, with devas and nagas, and then all sorts of different beings. I know the Tibetans have like 8 groups of different spirits. I'm not sure if all of them are Dharma protectors, but there's usually, yakshas and rakshas and mamos and all these ones that we make offerings to. But I don't know if they're the same group here, okay, because the ones in the Tibetans that we make offerings to, they're usually ones that can be harmful, but then often what they try and do is take the harmful spirits and make them into Dharma protectors. The protector, Sangharaman. So here the footnote says it's a group of devas who guard the Dharma and Buddhist monasteries. But I think Sangharaman is the Bodhisattva. What's the one in Varsha? That way, Vaitupusa. Yeah, I somehow have it in my mind that Sangharaman is Vaitupusa. But okay, because there's different Dharma protectors, and they have different names, and yeah, so we're asking all of them. Okay, even though we're not sure who's who. Okay, and then May, and then here we would say Sravasti Abbey, spread the Dharma forever without interruption. So we really make dedication prayers also for the temple and the group of people practicing it, the monastery, so that whatever is happening can continue to happen and spread the Dharma. Yeah. And then may the head of state lead the citizens well. That one we really have to pray hard for. And may the government work during the government shutdown in January, saying this, really meant it made the government work. We didn't even get for the part of for the benefit of the people. It's just may it work, because a third of the government was shut down because Trump didn't get the money for his wall. So, okay, but to really pray, may the government work for the benefit of all the people. That's what the government's there for. Yeah. By the merit, may all spiritual teachers, fellow practitioners, parents, good and bad friends. So good friends we can understand. Bad friends, what were bad friends? They were the people who, who were good, who thought they were good friends, but were encouraging us to, go to the Bahamas and go to the movies and so on and so forth, okay? Supporters in the 10 directions, and all sentient beings in the universe, may they all cross the ocean of samsara and reach the other shore. So it's important to dedicate, for our spiritual teachers, our fellow practitioners, not to just take all these people for granted. Dedicate for our parents. Yeah, no matter what your childhood was like, your parents gave you this body, and your parents made sure you stayed alive, and so we have this precious human life we have to dedicate for our parents. Okay. Good and bad friends, so people who help us, people who harm us. Supporters in the 10 directions, so all the people who keep us alive. Yeah. I mean, here we've had how many days? 2.5 weeks of food. Yeah. Supplied by how many people? And we don't even know the names and faces of all the people who have donated to make it possible so that we've had food for 2.5 weeks, let alone electricity, let alone everything else. And so all these people, the ones we know, the ones we don't know, it's really important that we dedicate for the well-being of our sponsors and supporters. Because without them, where would we be? Okay, and all the sentient beings in the universe. So cross the ocean of samsara and reach the other shore. Okay, then we do the go forth chant again. We did this one before, didn't we? Yeah. So go forth to enter the path, cut off bonds and bid family farewell. Now you are imbued with the precepts. Resolve to cut non-virtue and cultivate compassion. Renounce illusion, return to the truth. How happy is the door to liberation. So it's reminding us again. This verse came early on, didn't it? So let's do the go forth to enter the path. Yeah, so it's again reminding us again and again of what's important.
Go forth to enter the path. Cut off bonds and bid family farewell. Now you are imbued with the precepts. Resolve to cut non-virtue and cultivate compassion. Renounce illusion, return to the truth. How happy is the door to liberation. Go forth to enter the path. Cut off bonds and bid family farewell. Now you are imbued with the precepts. Resolve to cut non-virtue and cultivate compassion. Renounce illusion, return to the truth. How happy is the door to liberation.
That's a beautiful verse, isn't it? And it has so much in it, especially when it says cut off bonds and bid family farewell. It's like, now I'm free. Yeah, now I'm free from, everybody's expectations, what everybody wants me to be. Yeah, and I've said, thank you, everybody, for nourishing me to where I am right now, and I'm never going to be everything you want me to be, and I'm okay with that, and I hope you're okay with that. Yeah? And now we're free. We're not to each other. Okay, and we're imbued with the precepts. So we've given that up, but look what we have now. Something much more precious than family and friends. We have the precept. We have our refuge. We have a connection with the three jewels. Okay? So resolve to cut off virtue, cultivate compassion. Yeah, renounce illusion, all this make-up garbage we have in our mind. Okay, all this self-talk about how we are worthless, all this talk about, oh, this person's so wonderful, they're going to make me happy forever. All this talk of, if only I had this, that, the other, then I'd really be happy. If only this person did this, that, and the other, then the world would be okay. All of this, illusion, we drop, we leave. Okay? And we renounce illusion, return to the truth. We try and see things more realistically, especially seeing them as empty and dependent, and to see them and to see other living beings with compassion. And then, how happy is the door to liberation? Can't ask for anything better than that. And then there's another dedication verse. Okay, so this verse is, we do it at the end of many ceremonies, but here it says, ordination is a virtuous, wonderful deed. And when we do it at the end of Posada, we say Posada is a virtuous and wonderful deed, or Varsa is a virtuous and wonderful deed. So whatever it is, okay? And so these are all rites, ceremonies that have been prescribed in the Vinaya. In the Vinaya, there are the proscriptive precepts and prescriptive precepts. So the proscriptive precepts are what we're not supposed to do. So those are the ones that we usually go over and confess. And then the prescriptive precepts are the Dharma activities that the Buddha wants us to do, okay? Like Posada, Varsa, Pravarana, ordination, all these kinds of things, Katina. Okay, so here, all of these things are virtuous, wonderful deeds. We dedicate the boundless, magnificent merit. So again, really thinking of the merit that we created by doing these. And again, it's not merit that I created alone by myself. It's merit we created together by following the Buddha's instructions and doing these Sangha activities. And it's important for a Sangha community to do these activities because when the Sangha community of 4 or more fully ordained people do the 3 main ceremonies, the Posada, the fortnightly confession and restoration of precepts, the Varsa, the annual rains retreat or winter retreat, and the Pravarana, the invitation at the end of that retreat to receive feedback. When a a Sangha does that, then that makes the land that they're in a central land, okay? Which is one of the qualities of having a precious human life, is being born or living in a central land. So it's important that the Sangha does these different activities. And like we've said to you before, and like you experienced during Posada, they really have a special effect on the mind. Yeah, they're not just old kind of, same old rite that you say every year that's like boring. But they really have something that, that speaks to your heart. So you can feel the merit that's created. And so now we dedicate that boundless, magnificent merit. How do we dedicate it? So that all the sentient beings submerged in suffering can quickly go to the land of the Buddha of infinite light. So if they can be born in Amitabha's pure land of Sukhavati, then we pay homage to the Buddhas in the 10 directions and the 3 times, past, present, and future, to all the Bodhisattva, Mahasattvas, and to the great Prajnaparamita. Okay, so Prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom. So you can think of its emptiness. Perfection of wisdom is emptiness. You can think of Prajnaparamita as the scriptures if you want to, or the deity Prajnaparamita. Okay, there's many different meanings of that. So let's chant that dedication too.
Ordination is the magnificent and merit may all sentient beings submerged in suffering quickly go to the land of the Buddha. Of infinite light, homage to all Buddhas in 10 directions and 3 times to all bodhisattvas and to the great Prajnaparamita.
And then we do the 3 refuges. And each of the, I just feel like there's so much in these 3 verses because we take refuge individually in each of the 3 jewels, okay? And then we have an aspiration for sentient beings in connection with each of the 3 jewels, yeah? So we take refuge in the Buddha, and what do we want for sentient beings? We want them all to become Buddhas. And what's the chief factor that they need to practice to enter the Bodhisattva path? Yeah, the bodhicitta. So they understand the great way. Great way is Mahayana. So they understand, we're praying that they understand the great way profoundly and bring forth the Bodhi mind and bring forth the bodhicitta. And in that way, sentient beings can become the Buddha, which we have just taken. We've taken refuge in the causal Buddha who exists with the aspiration that we and others will all produce our resultant Buddha jewel. We will become the Buddha jewel in the future. Then we take refuge in the Dharma. And again, the Dharma, the chief thing in the Dharma, the Prajnaparamita Sutras, learning about emptiness, because, on the method side, we need bodhicitta. On the wisdom side, we need the wisdom realizing emptiness. So we take refuge in the Dharma, and then we dedicate so that each and every sentient being enter the sutra treasury. So, all the vast sutras, but especially what they develop, the wisdom vast as the sea, because that wisdom is the wisdom realizing emptiness that's going to liberate us from samsara. And then we take refuge in the Sangha, and we dedicate so that all the living beings, ordinary beings, Aryas, that we form together a great assembly in harmony. And I think when all the disciples can come together in harmony, that the Buddha must be so delighted, that when disciples are in conflict and not getting along and have divisive talk and argument, or criticize each other's traditions or whatever, that the Buddha must be very unhappy. But, when we all get along and we help each other and there's no, I'm superior and you're inferior and that kind of junk, then, one and all in harmony. And I think Buddhas are smiling. So we do that. So before we chant those, we have a little bit of time for Q&A. If you have any Q's or A's or comments.
I'm concerned and a little bit worried about these upcoming karmic appearances at the time of death.
Mm-hmm.
Are these memories of things that we've done and then, can you explain more about that, Venerable?
The karmic appearances at the time of death. It seems to me they could be a whole variety of things. They could be exaggerated memories of things that we've done, or visions of people or animals or whatever doing what we've done to others to us. Or they could be visions of, I don't know, fire or water or, people screaming at you, or who knows what kind of karmic visions our mind can create, depending on our actions towards other living beings. Yeah, when we were alive, in this life or in previous lives. Yeah, so at the time to be able to say to ourselves, these are just karmic appearances. I don't need to react so strongly to them. Yeah. So it's kind of like when you're alive and something happens that you find distressing, to be able to say this is simply a karmic experience or karmic appearance. Yeah, I don't need to react. I don't need to jump out of my skin in fear. I don't need to protect myself. I don't need to whatever. It's just a karmic appearance. Don't get excited. And even good karmic experiences, not to, grasp at them.
Same point. I had a dream, and I didn't have that dream for a long time, but so wherever I was, and then there's that, it feels like a person is coming towards me, and big fear, and I just wake up. Mm. So is it like this?
It could be. It could be. Yeah. I mean, who knows what can appear to our mind at any particular moment? Just like we talk here, sometimes somebody's trying to help us and we see that person is harming us. Yeah, it happens a lot. Sometimes people are being kind and we see something, we interpret it as something fearful. Yeah, so it could be who knows what. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of advice around in the world about how to make decisions.
About what decisions?
About how to make decisions.
Decisions, right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering, like, Dharma advice on how to go about that. Things that we know, for example, will support our practice, changes we need to make.
Yeah.
Whether it's to pursue ordination or any other move. Mm-hmm. Trying to figure out what's, I know what makes sense, and then trying to figure out what feels right, and trying to figure out what's attachment. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, trying to identify all our mental states is difficult at the beginning, and probably in the middle, and maybe hopefully gets a little easier at the end of the path. But, because most of us have just gone through life following, a thought comes in our mind, a feeling, an emotion comes in, and we act it out. And we never question it. And lots of times we aren't even aware of what we're thinking and feeling. And we don't even know how to give labels to name what we're thinking. Some people grow up in families where the emotions have never been named. Yeah. And so you meet people and you say, it looks like they're angry. And you say to them, oh, are you feeling angry? And they have to stop and, well, I don't know. Yeah, because it's like learning how to identify what we feel is a skill that we have to learn. And some families encourage us to be able to do that, and other families encourage us how to repair motorcycles. So, we get different skills. In terms of how to, so that's one thing, how to identify what we're feeling is one thing. Sometimes how to do that, I don't know. Sometimes you just have to sit there, and with time, you do. It can be helpful to study the different kind of mental factors, and then try and, read the definition, read how they function, read about them, and then say, well, okay, how can I identify that in my experience? Yeah. And so you try and find that in your own experience, by remembering times in the past where you may have felt them. And then in the present, being aware of our emotions and trying to see, if they correspond to any of those things that we've read about and studied. Okay. In terms of how to make decisions, the criteria I personally use are, first of all, in which situation will I be able to avoid non-virtue and create virtue the best? In which situation will I be able to keep my precepts the best? Or which situation could I meet a lot of things that interfere with my Dharma practice and make keeping my precepts or, living an ethical life difficult because of the environment or the people I'm with or the job I'm given, what people expect me to do. So I really try and assess things according to that. Okay, that's one thing. And then the second one is, which situations will enable me to cultivate bodhicitta and great compassion, or which situations, will facilitate my cultivation of great compassion and bodhicitta. Yeah, because that's something else I value a lot. And so I want to put myself in situations that are conducive for that, not in situations that, with my present state of mind will be so overwhelming that I will get very angry and create a lot of negativity. Okay, but situations where I'm around people who will encourage and support me in ethical conduct, in doing what's right, in cultivating wisdom and compassion. So I often assess different, when I have a choice, I assess the different things by those two criteria principally.
One of my favorite talks that you ever gave was about this subject of making decisions for the long-term benefit. And you mentioned those two first questions, and then you had a third, which was, in which situation could I be of greatest benefit to others?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then there are two other pieces of advice, which were, don't make decisions based on the 8 worldly concerns, and think long-term.
Yeah.
We put this in the Anagarika handbook.
Oh, okay. Yeah. 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 I mean, making decisions based on the 8 worldly concerns is a disaster. And to really think long term, what is of great meaning in my life. Yeah? And not to just go along with what everybody's doing and trying to fulfill everybody's expectations of what we think they think we should be.
I was surprised that the 10 shamanary precepts don't mention robes, about wearing robes.
That's assumed, okay? It's assumed because part of going forth is, because remember, not all the things we're supposed to do are included in the precepts. There's a lot of prescriptive precepts, the things we're supposed to do, like wear robes, have a bowl, use certain kind of material for this and that, and stuff like that. So I think it's just assumed. Because, if you don't wear robes, it's going to be very hard to keep the precepts, because you yourself will forget what you're trying to do. And then other people won't know what you're trying to do, and so their behavior towards you will change, because they think you're a layperson, and they'll treat you like one. And a lot of the things then that they invite you to do or want you to do are things that are counter to the precepts. So one thing that's helpful to remember in making the precepts, because the Buddha made all the precepts when certain events occurred. It wasn't like the Buddha thought, oh, now I'm going to ordain people. What are the rules? 1, 2, 300, and 47, 348. No, it isn't like that. It's the Buddha ordained people at the beginning. He just said, come, O Bhikshu, and that was it. And then when people started misbehaving, then the Buddha started creating the precepts. Okay, so all the precepts are based on real incidents that people did. And, if sometimes we think things are degenerate now, read what some of the Buddha's disciples did. Some of them, those people, there were 4. They say there were 6 naughty monks and 6 naughty nuns. And some of the things those people did were pretty far out. Okay? And so all the precepts were made because they made boo-boos, big ones and small ones. And that's how the precepts got made. But you can see that some of the precepts are naturally negative, in that most beings who did those actions would have a bad motivation. And then other actions they're not naturally negative, but you could do them with a positive mind or a negative mind. But the Buddha proscribed those because they interfered with the harmony within the Sangha, or the harmony of the lay people and the Sangha. Okay? So like singing, dancing, playing music, it's not naturally negative, yeah? But the Buddha, it's one of the precepts to abandon, because when we do those things, you sit down to your next meditation, and what's going through your mind? The latest song you heard, and the latest dance step, and and you get so easily distracted. So that became one of the precepts. And then a lot of the precepts were made because the lay people complained about how the Sangha was acting. People did things that were very, very inconsiderate, or seemed really inappropriate for people who are renunciants. And so they went and they told the Buddha, hey, your disciples are out there, in the lake, swimming, playing around, playing beach ball, and they're there the whole afternoon. And, it just, please tell them they should act more like renunciants, and less like children. And so, and I guess somebody had their chamber pot, and they threw the contents over the wall without looking where they were throwing, and it landed on somebody, and that person probably went to the Buddha and said, look, here I am, this is from your disciple. And Buddha said, whoops, I better tell my disciples not to throw their stuff over the wall, when they want to empty their chamber pot. Okay, so, a lot of things happen in real life situations where the Sangha just did things that were really unbecoming and inconsiderate. So nowadays, we have more ways to do unbecoming and inconsiderate things than they had in the past. I mean, some of the things they did before, we don't have to worry about our chamber pots, okay? Okay, we just flush the toilet and that's okay. So we keep that precept. But there's a lot of other things we do. And I think if the Buddha were alive today, we would have precepts about recycling, about throwing litter on the ground. We would have precepts about how we use vehicles and not just getting in the car and going wherever we want, whenever we want. We would have precepts about internet use, about cell phone use, about all these kinds of things, because I'm sure, can you imagine? Just think, if you've ever been to one of the big monasteries in India, and they have the internet booths in there, and the monks are in there, and who knows what they're watching, okay? Some of them are checking email, some of them, I don't know what they're watching, but can you imagine I can't imagine, I've been in there, and somebody looking, and here are monks playing video games, or I don't know what they're looking at, or who knows what. And if the Buddha were here, I'm sure somebody would go and say, I thought your monks were like really dedicated to purifying their mind. And look what they're doing in the internet cafe. Yeah. And then the Buddha would say, oh, yeah, you're right. We got to make some precepts to regulate that because that's not good for their minds. And the behavior is causing doubt in the minds of the lay people, or inconvenience in the minds of the lay people. So the Buddha also said, if there's any other things in line with these precepts, that the Buddha hasn't explicitly prohibited, but are in line with that, then we should abandon those. And if there are other actions that are in line with the prescriptions that the Buddha gave for us to do, then we should practice those as well. Okay, so we should always think about how to keep the precepts in our day and age in a way that is suitable. Yeah. So, can you imagine if everybody, if the Abbey owns so many vehicles, and then everybody's, one person goes to Coeur d'Alene, and one person goes to Newport, and one person goes to Sandpoint, one person goes to Spokane, and one person goes to Deer Park, and somebody else is just joyriding, cruising around, and then, the lay people come and say, they see this and they say to the Buddha, aren't your disciples supposed to be practicing the Dharma? They're driving all over the northeast Washington, going everywhere. What in the world are they doing? And they're polluting the air, riding in their vehicles, Each one has their own vehicle. Yeah, they can't even go two in a car. Can you imagine the lay people who care about the environment? What they're going to say to the Buddha? So, we need to be aware of this kind of stuff.
So on the topic of precepts, but going back to page 24 of the hindrances, I was wondering if you could clarify a little bit. I know we're short on time. So the first one is excluding offense, and the footnote 35, highlights that it's breaking the lay precepts, and it says that it has, what's considered is whether it's serious, intermediate, or minor. And I was wondering if there are lists or definitions of what counts as serious, intermediate, and minor. So for those of us with precepts, maybe we should start keeping a list of everything we mess up on.
Yeah. I think it's up to the Vinaya master to discern what they consider serious or intermediate or severe, and for them then on the basis of that to make the decision whether the candidate is qualified or not.
So is the idea that we would be confessing to the preceptor every violation of the precepts since we've taken them?
You would never have time
Right.
to finish. Yeah, I think, any big violations, it's good to tell the preceptor. There's actually a ceremony in the Chinese tradition where you reveal all these things. But they have you do it after you've purified and taken the Shramanera. And so then they just say, okay, it's from the time you took Shramanera, in the last 2 weeks until now. But I think before you take Shramanera, you should, if there's any big offenses or things like that, it's good to confess them also because we need to get them off our chest and not have these things that we just don't feel good about, that we're kind of constantly putting under the table, but instead, open them up and reveal them, and then, the masters can decide. Okay, like at the ordination, it was so interesting and educational, being at this last ordination, and getting to know the guides, and hearing, because they were the ones who had the most contact with the candidates, and hearing the stories and different things. Like there was one candidate who was how do you put it correctly? Not a prostitute, but kind of close to one. Okay? And she had said that she was giving up that life and she wanted to ordain and practice the Dharma. It seems like she didn't put that on her application form. They didn't find out about it until she was there, okay? And then, of course, they talked to her, and their main concern was, has she really given up that life? Or, is that something where she still has some longing for it, or where there's a lot of habitual energy, or where she's stuck in a social situation where all the men would still expect that. What did you call it? Mama-san or something? Yeah, kind of like a pimp. Yeah, but she probably tried it out before herself too. So of course they were very concerned. Is this person suitable to give the ordination to or not? Yeah. And so they talked to her quite a bit and asked questions. And then there were also all sorts of other things that came up too. Yeah. Huh? I think so. I think in the end they gave her the ordination. But boy, they talked, they questioned her a lot. I mean, more than once, because we heard about it more than once. Yeah, I would think so. Do you remember if they talked to her teacher? And there were all sorts of things, and things that people didn't mention at the beginning that only came up during the training, and then having to deal with them and see, are people qualified or not? Okay, so, if you earned your living that way before you decided to ordain, good to tell the precept. Okay, and then any other kind of major things that are heavy karmas.